Ronnie. Well, Ronnie covered kind of the elements at a high level of a business plan. I have a relatively short section to cover, but a very important section. And that is the financial section. Whether you're a startup who's looking to leverage angels, friends, family, government, taxpayers, or you're an early stage company who's looking to perhaps obtain some external financing, venture capital, or you're a company that's in a growth mode that's looking to access different forms of financing, for example, debt or private equity, or you're in a company that...
Can I hear you, Sam?
Sam,
Yeah. I think you'd like to use it?
Sure.
That'd be better.
Sorry about that.
That's better.
Thank you. Sorry about that. As I was saying, we're a company that is matured, who is looking to see whether or not you're going to exit or go public, or perhaps stay the course. A very important element of your plan, of your business plan, is to have a very thorough, detailed financial section. And today, as I mentioned, kind of the different stages of companies, I think the focus of my few minutes is going to be on perhaps the lender's perspective and what they might look for in a set of financial statements, and therefore what you might include in your business plan from a financial perspective. When you look at kind of a company's financial situation, you can consider it as a lender, perhaps, in kind of three buckets. The past, right? You know, what is the financial history of the company? For example, if it's an existing business. The future, right? Are there projections, financial projections that you have? So kind of a forward timeline in the context of numbers, articulating all of the things that Ronnie made mention of in the business plan that is required. Something objective, some facts, numbers to show exactly how a business will perform. And for a particular project that you may have, if you're putting a business plan together or in the context of your business plan, you know, is there a detailed budget? What does that budget look like? What are some of the sources of financing that you're considering? The important thing here, I think, is to suggest to everybody is that it's very, we need to be very specific.
We need to rank the days.
Sort of.
Maybe put it a little higher.
Sorry about that.
That's better.
Did everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah? Everybody's good? Excellent. So I'm going to go to the next slide. And it's basically at a high level. Ronnie talked about some of the other components. But in my view, as a user of a business plan, financial statements are really the heart of the plan. And that articulate in numbers actually what the business is all about. So I'm not sure in terms of the audience here, how many of you are existing business owners? Okay, a few, 2, 3. How many of you are students or
2.
how many of you have written a business plan in the past? I know that Ronnie asked a question.
More than half.
More than half. So, as you all know, a business plan needs to include some vital elements. One is a balance sheet, a cash flow statement, an income statement, and also assumptions, what I call other important financial information. Assumptions that kind of speak to the numbers that are articulated in the financial statements. So why is this important? Why is are the financial statements important? Well, for example, if you think of your financial statements in the context of your business plan, they have different users. And so if I'm a lender, for example, or you're a bank, they'd be interested to know how you're going to pay back your principal and interest, or overdraft, or whatever, on your loan. What you intend to do with the money, and how it will help your business grow. And so you need to be in a position where you clearly articulate that in the context of financial forecast or a plan, a financial plan. For example, for potential investors that look at your business, if you're an earlier stage company, they want to know what the returns are going to look like, right? And how, you know, the money that they gave you really will help your company grow in the context of some of the numbers. Other shareholders, they want to know what their share price could be, for example, in a few years or whatever the case might be as your business evolves. But really, in summary, lenders, shareholders, investors, they want facts and figures, and the financial statements are really a way to kind of back up what you have to say. I think it's in some of the handouts there that you have, kind of speaks to this. So a lender, who is a lender? A lender is somebody that's professional, they're skeptical by trade, and in order to sway them, you need to make your numbers, or let your numbers do the talking. So since a lot of you here are kind of starting out, and maybe, you know, first-time entrepreneurs perhaps, you know, I'm going to tailor the kind of commentaries to say, okay, what is some of the things numbers-wise that a lender will look for? They want your financials to show, right, your personal net worth, your business net worth. So they can see, you know, can you pay back the principal and interest? They'll look at your credit history, right, to kind of see whether or not you're reliable, and Ronnie spoke to that in terms of the character that you might have. And they'll also kind of do a credit check, which is kind of some of the things that you've done. So those are kind of the softer things, but not necessarily included in the numbers, but it'll help them kind of inform their opinion on some of the numbers that you might have. So what are some of the things you want to include in say, your financial plan? You want to show the assets that you have, right? If you're a company that's looking to seek money with or some debt, you know, debt banker will say, okay, do I have some collateral to secure the loan? And so you want your balance sheet to show the collateral that you might have. You want your balance sheet to also show what Ronnie talked about earlier, perhaps the skin in the game. So in other words, you know, how much of your own money you put into it? In other words, your equity, the investment that you've perhaps raised through your friends or family. I think the point here that is in your handouts there, but obviously the rule of thumb is that money attracts money. So the more backers you have, the easier it is to attract new ones. And so when you look at that equity section, and you look at that balance sheet that you have, it's very important. That equity section shows, you know, that other people are taking risk with you, and that's important to include in the context of some of the numbers that you might have. So what is an important, I guess, statement that I look at if I was a lender, or that I would look at? One would be the cash flow statement. And so that's your forecast. So that's your ability to service your debt. Because lenders care about your ability to pay principal and interest. So, you know, how much cash do you need to run your business? So certain things that you're going to invest in, and Ronnie talked about, I guess in the context of the business, but technology, whether it's inventory, it's equipment, or some of the human resources that you might have articulated. What does that mean in terms of cost? And that's something that you want to be able to clearly articulate. Ronnie spoke to an implementation plan. So trying to make it all happen. At the end of the day, your implementation plan also needs to be articulated in the context or made congruent to your financial plan, your forecast. So those are things that you want to include. A lot of lenders look at assumptions, and that's something that's often overlooked, you know, in a business plan. And some of the business plans that I've looked at, you know, they're great. There's information there, but I didn't really have an understanding of what the numbers meant. So it's very important that you articulate those assumptions in the context of financial planning going forward. And you can put a list together. It could be something as easy as a list or an appendix that you include for people. So I spoke to this in terms of what lenders look for, and Ronnie spoke to some of the concepts as well. Another very important piece is the financial forecast. And that is, what is the go-forward view of your business? And how are you going to support your business? Is your business capitalized enough to grow as you intend to grow? In other words, do you have the money that you need to make payments to your suppliers? Do you have the money to pay your human resources? And so it's very important that, in your forecast, you contemplate what some of your sources of money are. And so a lender will say, okay, there's investment, there's equity, there's some debt that I might be able to give. But at the end of the day, in a year or two, the company, as it evolves, will be able to debt service. It'll be able to grow. It has sufficient capitalization. And so your financial forecast needs to reflect that. So I think we covered some of this, but finding the right type of financing. So in the context of the financial, why we thought that this was important to include is because a lot of people were wondering, okay, what are some of the sources? We look at that equity box that's on your balance sheet. So it could be personal investment, right? It's your own money. It could be, friends and family, what we call love money, or it could be investments from others if you're a more mature business, and that could be, private equity investment, for example. So, a lot of businesses or a lot of business plans, that don't have what I call a proper financial plan or a proper financial model, unfortunately, end up failing because there could be a lack of clarity, right? There could be unrealistic concept as to how the business needs to be capitalized or financed, or it could be something non-numbers wise. It could be where a lender or an investor has some sort of due diligence that they undertake that they don't necessarily like. So with your numbers, you're in a position where you can articulate based on some of the homework that you've done, based on the information that you've included in the sections that Ronnie was talking about, that your business is plausible, that it is a viable going concern. And so it's very important when you put your numbers together that you remember that one thing, and I always say this to a lot of people that we advise or that speak to us about putting together a financial plan, is that you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So it's very important that your financials are up to snuff, that you've considered who your audience is. And so, if you're a more mature company and you're going to a bank and you want some debt, well, you need to be able to put together those three things about past, present, and future that I talked about. If you're a growing, more embryonic company, you want to be in a position where you're also articulating the numbers in a way that is meaningful for the user, so that is perhaps a potential investor. So I think the point I'm trying to make here is that you should know your audience. And so your financial plan, what's in your business plan, should be tailored for whomever it is that is using your business plan. And so don't be shy to amend, to evolve, as Ronnie mentioned, the financial plan as you evolve the business plan. And that's something that's very important. A lot of people don't do, and unfortunately it negatively affects a potential investment decision or a lending decision. So if there's a few things that I wanted to kind of recap and just say in terms of the importance of some of the numbers, it's that one size doesn't fit all, and so it's important that you tailor your message, you tailor your messages. And another one is that, as we talked about the financial statements here and the importance of the financial statements in the business plan, and I think Selena is going to touch on this, but it's very important to have a financial model that evolves with you as your business evolves. And that's something that is your stake in the ground, your roadmap that you can leverage as you move forward. We talked about some of the different types of financing, but as you move forward, and that allows you to kind of plan your growth. Because, you know, very often companies grow, but perhaps they didn't quite plan for how they're going to have that growth. And so a financial model and a clearly articulated financial plan that constantly evolves is something that is going to assist you incredibly as your business goes to another level. So, like I said, really a short part for what I have to say. You know, I work with my clients to kind of put those numbers together. So I thought I'd put it out there if there's any questions that anybody might have. I know we've got a Q&A after, but you know, in terms of, you know, financial statements or anything that you might think of that you know, might be, you know, keeping you up at night in terms of what you might need to include. Yeah.
Talking about financial models, can you give us an example where we can find this information, these models?
A model is unique. A model is unique to a company, right? It has different assumptions. It has different types of information, different inputs. But the basic, the crux, not necessarily, and don't think of a model as being something that's overly complicated. A model could very well be, Ronnie mentioned at the BDC Advice Center, we've got a template.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, templates.
Yeah.
Where we can find them.
So you can find a template if you go to www.bdc.ca, and if you go to click on the Advice Center, there are indicative templates there for you that have forecasts, and that you simply just put in some of the assumptions of the information that you need, and that will spit information out for you. But again, those aren't tailored, but they're very generic in nature, but at least it gives you kind of an idea of what you need to have.
Basic,
So,
yeah.
Basic.
Yeah.
And that could be valuable for you. Any more questions? Yeah?
Actually, it concerns some of what you've been saying and what Ronnie was saying. Particularly, I was impressed by the statement that you want to work with other people's money. The question I have, however, is that one of the issues about that is what level of control you're prepared to give away. If my firm is actually owned 100% by others, what type of control do I have? Not being an egomaniac, but the issue is that somebody who has lent money to you does have demands on what you're doing.
Okay, allow me to answer the question. Thank you very much for your question. The different sources of financing and the different stages at which the business will look for different type of funds is directly related to the control that you are going to be having. If you want to have 100% control, you use your own money, nobody's going to ask you questions, you don't have to answer to anybody except maybe your family members. If you want to have and you have enough deep pockets that you can run it on your own, then please do so. I don't know of too many companies that have done it successfully. However, my view has been very simple. What would I like to have? Would I like to have control, or do I want to make money? I have always chosen to make money. So owning 100% of a $1 million company is not as exciting to me as owning 10% of a $100 million company. And therefore, control for me has never been important. What has been more important is the ability to communicate my message, to add value to the business I am in, and to add value to the investors that are with me. And choosing the investors is paramount. You know your business, you know your industry. Don't take an investor that only because he has or she has money. You want an investor that has connections that will allow you, in return for the loss of control that you have, will increase significantly the value of your business. Because remember, the investor that wants more share and more control taken away from you and in his or her hand is because they want to have the ability to maybe have an influence on selling the business. And remember, investors, when they will take control, if they invest, they want, as I mentioned, an individual investor will want 3 to 5 times returns. So if I invest $100,000, I want to have a minimum of $500,000 within 3 to 5 years. So just think about how much more valuable my company is just from the intention of these individuals. And there is a reason why actually they are looking at 5 times. Because investors usually accommodate themselves and they risk about $500,000. They will invest probably about $100,000 in a company, and they will, as we all know, you never put all your eggs in one basket, and they will spread it into around 5 because they are personally involved. And accidentally, the reason why they pick 5 is because there are 5 days in a week. And therefore, each day, they are actually in one of the businesses they have invested in to contribute and help and bring their own skills to that business. Venture capital are a little bit more removed from being in your business. They are looking at your business. You're reporting to them, basically. So you have less control, you're right. But in their case, they leverage their time. So they invest in about 10 businesses, amounts varying between $500,000 to $2 million. So as a result, they are looking at 10 times return, because statistics show that if you are involved in helping the business as an investor, chances are that 1 in 5 will succeed. If you are a little bit more removed, 1 in 10 will succeed. If you are on your own, about 2 in 100 will succeed. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's basically level of different controls, and yes, you grow.
Based on what you said, as a beginner entrepreneur, I'm looking, based on what you said, I will be looking for money.
Yes.
But personally, I'm talking to myself, I'm not looking only for money. I'm not focusing on the money, because, and then the money will come. I will reach the money. But I'm looking for the name, for the brand name. So, is there any strategies we can use them helping us using our money?
Yes. An example would be when you look at borrowing money, as an example, people are coming to the BDC for lending. Why? Yes, they need some money, but we are very difficult in our requirements. And they go through the harassment, if I can call it that way, only because they want to be able to say, we have our BDC is on side with us. If BDC has trusted our business, BDC is considered one of the toughest due diligence bank in the market. And therefore, if now you go to individuals who don't really have the same ability to do some due diligence and say, BDC is with me, then you have a better chance to attract money. And the same thing, when you look for individual investors, before you get the money from them, you want to know what is their track record. Who are you? What have you done? Who are the people that you do know? Because if that person is involved in your business, chances are that if he's known in the industry from which he comes or she comes, then you can now access more money, because if he's involved, and that is typical of in technology. Very often, technology companies are either hiring consultants or hiring board members or board of advisors of people from the industry that have those connections in order to help the management of the company to attract more funds. You want to answer?
Ronnie, I have a question to you. Yeah, about presentations. Let's say if you work with OPM, other people money.
Yes.
So can you give us some tips on this?
On how to work with other people money?
Well, no, on presentation.
Be ethical, be honest, and be upfront. No surprises in business. If there is something going wrong, you are the first one to pick up the phone and say, by the way, something is not as planned. Here's here's the problem. Here is the kind of options and solutions that I'm trying to put in place. And No surprises. So even for a bank, just to give an example.
I'm asking you about the presentation. Let's say on the stage where you present the deal. how
To the
you-
bank? Yes.
Yeah, no, not especially.
Or to an investor?
To an
Yeah.
investor, yeah.
Okay, an investment presentation is probably about 10 slides, 10 to 12 slides.
Okay.
Each slide should not have more than 4 to 5 bullets. Each bullet should not have more than 4 to 5 words. So, remember, as a presentation, now we are talking about presentation skills and presentation capabilities. The slides, as you have noticed, they are not slides for you. They are slides for me. They are memory joggers for me, the speaker, to know what message I need to communicate. So the investment presentation is exactly the same. It's a memory jogger to make sure that you are going through a structure and that you know what to communicate. So the first start will be, here is how much I invested, here's how much money I want, and here is how I intend to use it.
How many types of presentations are you usually using? 1, 2, 3
One.
for presenting the deal to other people. So this is the same
One.
type of the
Yeah.
presentation?
If I'm raising cash,
Yeah.
the first chart about the equity and what I need from a funding point perspective is always there. All the rest is about who I am, who the company is, what they do, how they do it, how they generate the revenue, as Sal very well put it, my financial history, how much did I sell, how much I intend to sell, and a demo of my product or my service. It's always the same.
And can we find the template of your presentation somewhere or look at this?
Yeah, it costs $6,000, you hire them. We have to make a living too, right? No, you can find a lot of them. Just Google investment presentations. Most venture capital groups, most pension funds will be delighted, actually. That's how I got mine.
Oh, actually,
They will be
good
delighted to
question.
give it to you because they want you to be consistent when they view it. So they don't have to relearn what to look for.
Let's say if I want to work with you, how much is it going to cost for me to make a presentation for my investor?
Offline with them.
Okay.
I made a mistake, but I was under the impression that BDC does not typically lend to real startups, really early days.
So I can answer that. So the bank does support startups. We have a product that is a financing feature up to $150,000. Can I answer this question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sure. And so, and it's a very unique product in that based on a business plan and perhaps the plausibility that you're going to be able to execute on that plan, and to the extent that you're at commercial acceptance, and there's orders that are coming in that will allow you to succeed as a business, the bank will consider a startup loan. But what you have to remember is this: that loan, or that amount, that $150,000 startup loan for a startup business, is a loan. And so the bank, does not want to put you in a position where you're going to fail. And so you have to realize that, when you borrow money, you have to start paying back interest. And so they want to know, or they want to be comfortable that you're going to be in a position to pay back that principal and interest in a reasonable amount of time. So the bank very much does support startup businesses, and the bank is very much committed to entrepreneurs. But that there's a myth out there that it's difficult to get this type of money. Well, it's subject to the same adjudication that the bank will do to kind of make sure that you're successful. They want to make sure, the idea is this: we don't want to give money and see somebody fail, because at the end of the day, that money, in the context of that debt product, they're going to have to repay. Does that answer the question?
Can you go back to that slide where you listed the items that you look for and just say where people fail or what things concern you? A few slides ago.
Previous.
Yeah,
Previous. This one?
yeah.
So in a for example, in the financial section, when we're looking at a financial section, often oftentimes, for example, hypothetically, assumptions will be there, but that don't necessarily make sense. There could be, for example, seasonality in your business, and so you want to reflect that at a certain period of the year, my sales will be at a lower point, and therefore there will be perhaps some sort of a working capital need. And so typically we get just a generic view as to what straight line over 12 months what the view of the company will be. And so there's an opportunity to kind of show that and in the context of your projection, tailor some of the numbers.
Personal credit history is where most people fail.
And exactly, and Ronnie brings up a great point there. And so it's very important that you establish credibility. And so it's very important that you establish your personal credit history. And that includes something very simple as paying bills on time. A lot of entrepreneurs are pathologically optimistic, working really hard, and they forget to do the basics in terms of, for example, paying their Rogers bills that comes up, or perhaps making credit card payments late. And so, to be quite honest with you, when they give a loan that's based on a personal guarantee, they look at your character. And so, you want to be in a position where, you can inspire confidence in the lender to say, look, I pay my bills on time. You're going to take a chance with me, but you can be rest assured that, I'll do everything that it takes to pay back that principal and interest that I owe. So,
Ronnie and Sam, that was a great presentation.